add in Eric. Welcome everyone to episode 5 of Spin the Wheel. I am your host, Chuck Go, Senior Strategic Advisor at Social Chorus, and also joined as usual by my co-host, Rachel Miller. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, Chuck. Hi, everybody.
And knock on wood, my desk is wood, Rachel. I do not have any technical issues like I did yesterday. I have attempted to make amends with the fine people at Xfinity who suffered a fiber somewhere that knocked out basically the entire Midwest of the U.S. in their internet connection. But I wanted to thank you, Rachel, for carrying on that conversation last week with Katrina Marshall, who was on the show.
Pleasure. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. You were there, not for all of it.
Kind of.
You were coming in and out. But yeah, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation that we had, and it's continued since the show last week, which is great. So people have been pitching in online and having comments, which is fantastic. So thank you to everyone who tuned in, and thank you to everyone who is tuning in now. We are hopefully broadcasting live. So do let us know who's stopping by and where you're joining us from.
Yeah, we are live and it is working. So yes, please let us know if this is your first time watching the show. If you've come back several times, hopefully we have repeat viewers here. We promised that for this week's show, we're going to get back to the topic we had planned, which was around feedback and anonymity, but we couldn't miss that opportunity to bring in Katrina on. So I again wanted to thank Katrina for sharing her ideas. I know that even internally at Social Chorus, that episode was referenced several times of things that individual employees learn. So even people that aren't communicators certainly learned a lot from her advice and counsel on that. So yeah, please jump into the comments. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from. And we will be looking for your feedback coming in soon around this topic of feedback and anonymity. Oh, and I see here we've got Sarah Mullins, our first time coming in. Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for watching
Hi, Sarah.
Today's show. So on this topic of feedback and anonymity, we've had some time to think about it, Rachel.
Mm-hmm. We've had 2 weeks.
We've had a couple weeks. We had a
So
planning episode, and then we unplanned, and now we planned again to talk about it, which again was absolutely the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is a topic? So this was submitted from a past viewer of the show, and wondering about how do you handle leadership expectations with feedback and also the desire to have anonymity? Why do you think this is such an important topic for internal communicators?
I think it's a really important topic. I think even if we take away the tech and how you gather feedback, I think the fact is we need to listen to our employees. The fact is we need to amplify employee voice. That's just good practice, and it's good business sense, and it's good comm sense to really take into account the views and good or bad of our organizations and of our employees particularly. So I'm all for feedback. The question that came in was around anonymity and feedback. And we were discussing yesterday and last week in terms of what does good look like when it comes to employee feedback. And we've certainly seen the rise of technology in recent years where you can ask questions anonymously. I'm going to stumble on that. Where you can ask questions anonymously inside the organization. So you can use things like Slido, so Slido, which is an online piece of tech where your employees can ask questions, and it works really well alongside an all hands or town hall where your people can pitch in with their thoughts, their comments, their ideas, their suggestions. And then the beauty of Slido is that you can be named in it or be anonymous, and you see people upvoting. So one person will ask a question, maybe without a name, and other people will pitch in and say, I also want to have that question answered. And what that means is if you've got that feed showing up on stage when your leaders are up on stage or virtually at the moment, then you can see in real time what's important to your employees. So when I think about employee feedback, ideally, I'd like it to be named. I'd like there to be some accountability from employees so you can go back and have a real personal approach back and reply back. But if the fear of asking questions and if the fear of putting your name to a question stops you from having your voice heard, then that's when mechanisms for anonymity can be really helpful. And the mindset for me, often it's not who said what, but what's being said. So when I'm auditing internal comms, for example, there's a contract almost for confidentiality that says it's not necessarily about who said what. I want to hear what's being said inside the organization. So mixed bag for me. It's ideally best practice, put your name on a question. But if for whatever reason, there's a fear there, or fear of retribution, or fear of asking the question on everyone's lips, then without a name, I'll go with it, as long as I hear employees' voices. So that's my take. What about you? What's your thoughts on?
Well, I want to first get to some of the comments of people coming in, so we can see. We've got some great people coming in from YouTube that are watching. John here. Katrina was great last week. John, we absolutely agree. See, we've got Stacy here from Hertfordshire. First week since week 1. Thank you, Stacy, for coming back. Hopefully, you can always go back and watch the previous ones. So even
I told you it was raining,
live, you can go back and watch the other ones. Let's see. We've got Kim here from Huntington Beach. Probably lovely weather today there in Huntington Beach, I hope. Love the session with Katrina last week. Hello, Joanna, for coming in. Of course, we've got people on LinkedIn watching here. Natasha from Vancouver. Hello. And then our good friend Erica Goodwin, who is here again watching. So thank you, Erica, for coming back. Yeah, on that topic, I go a little bit halfway because I think, Rachel, there's the opportunity for an organization to provide both. I think that there's the anonymous, knowing that maybe the company can't directly come back to you and answer your question, either privately or publicly, hopefully more privately, depending on the nature of the subject. But I like it when companies give people the choice of put your name on it if you want, and then it's putting your name on it. I think that probably adds a little more credibility to the comment. But I like it when there's the anonymity option, if only because there are some things that people, employees, personal lives, social lives, professional lives, whatever it is, want to share, but are fearful of retribution or blowback on them. And I think the more sensitive the topic, probably that fear exists even more. And also the more sensitive the topic, probably the more important that topic is. We're not asking anonymous questions around what's everybody's favorite sandwich in the cafeteria. That's not an anonymity there. Unless you're afraid to admit Sloppy Joe, I don't know anybody would, but that's the anonymous there isn't as important. But if it's feedback and it's maybe somewhat scary feedback, and Dr. Lino Cameron Cherry talks about this around when people talk about having those difficult conversations and crucial conversations, those are easy to have when you're the person in power. Those are very easy to have because you've got the power over top of other people. When you're that person underneath, those conversations have a much different feel. And I think that's where I like it when organizations do give that ability for people to put your name on it, put your email address, phone number, whatever it is, and people can get back to you. Or if nope, this is something I need to share, I need to get off my chest, I need to let the business know. I even think about the implications with whistleblowers in organizations. I get that a lot of times those aren't anonymous, meaning they have to go back and research, but you never find out who that person is, or hopefully you never do find out who that person is. So I think there's some protection in anonymity. I'm curious though, Rachel, with the different clients that you've worked with, do you see a leadership style that tends to favor one over the other? Because I tend to see it's less the communicators that have that expectation, but sometimes it's the leaders above that like, nope, it cannot be anonymous. Nope, it has to have their name on it.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I think because leaders would like to think they're approachable and they don't understand that there's a fear attached to people putting their head above the parapet and asking a question. Certainly for my in-house career, I lost count of the number of times when I had a town hall and there's an expectation that there's questions. And very often the culture of asking questions doesn't happen. And it's so frustrating as a communicator because you know your people have got questions because they're asking them all the time, often through the comms team. And you sit there and it's just tumbleweed and nobody's asking questions. And I've certainly noticed that more people are asking questions now. I've dialed into quite a few leadership webinars with some of my clients over the last few weeks, and more people are asking questions than when I've sat in their head office and seen their town halls in person. People now are asking more questions. The leadership hasn't changed, but the mechanism has changed to silently, ask a question. But I think often it comes down to us educating leaders in terms of how do you respond when you get a question? Because that lives longer than the question. People remember, if you're shamed, if you ask a question and a leader addresses it terribly or shames you, you're not going to ask again. You'll probably never ask the question again. So
or if you even see a coworker who gets not even your question, even if you see that behavior, you're not going to offer it up.
No. So I think the key for me is a mix. So you need to have a mechanism, a mix of mechanisms to ask for feedback, whether it's through line managers, whether it's through a works council, whether it's through whatever the mechanism needs to be. You need to amplify employees' voices and have different methods and media to listen and actively listen and then do something about it. There is no point if you get feedback, anonymous or not, and you take it in and sort of nod and go, oh, that's really interesting, great, and then do nothing with it. You need to commit to listen and then take action.
And I think some great questions coming in here. Yep, I think that's the biggest feedback plague on the internal comms world is collecting it and then not doing a damn thing with it.
So look at all these questions we've got. Look at all these lovely questions, and then if you don't commit.
I'm going to bring this one in from Kevin here. That anonymity itself can be a source of information. What are your employees afraid to attach their names to? That's a great point, Kevin, because it goes back to. An apology, Jason Anthorn. I don't know if you're watching or not, but this is a quote, a story that he shared with me around an organization wanting to improve their online scores, like reputations of employees. And they're like, well, what can we do? And he basically gave a whole list of things. Or he's like, or you can be better people, right? That's how you improve your scores.
So like Glassdoor style.
Like on a Glassdoor site. If people have a great experience, they're not going to bash you on Glassdoor. If they've had a bad experience, then they absolutely could. So you can try to game it, but if you're a good person and a good leader and a strong company and a strong culture, you're going to get that good feedback. And if you do get the bad stuff, you want to know about it so that then you can address it before it shows up on Glassdoor. So that's a great question. And then I want to bring in this one from Caroline. I know she's been on the show several times. Does putting your name on it demonstrate level of trust in an organization? And I think absolutely that hits a nail on the head. I think so much of this relates back to trust. From
both sides, right? That you trust the organization to take your questions seriously, and the other way around, that there's no retribution there. So it's kind of trust on both sides, perhaps, if you put your name to it. That's great. That's a great point. There's some really lovely questions in here. Jared's asked some question from another UK, another Brit. Hi, Jared, from Wolverhampton. It says, in a recent Teams live events, we use the inbuilt Q&A feature. Our DNA encourages honesty, includes be honest, but we saw colleagues go anonymous to ask questions, some quite hurtful questions in how they were written.
There, we just covered our faces, but there everybody else can read it.
We debated afterwards, but agree. We decided we valued knowing people were feeling like that despite anonymity rather than not truly knowing the feeling. We had 332 questions and 1,200 who tuned in. Wow, that's a lot of questions, Jared. That's amazing. And you're at Bromford, I know. That's amazing. I think just the volume of questions there, and maybe it's worth experimenting. It's worth, if if you are having tumbleweed moments in town halls, it's because there's a sense of we can't be seen to ask questions. You need to keep experimenting and figuring out what can we do differently to encourage our employees to ask questions.
Yeah, I want to bring this one in from Meg, who's a past guest on Ecology Think Tank episode. There's obviously different types of feedback. There's the speaking out loud feedback, and then there's the electronic feedback. So somebody, even in this world, somebody might be more likely to submit a named item in Slido or some other mechanism to make that happen, but they wouldn't be likely to stand up in a live town hall with a microphone and ask that question in front of peers. So we're talking about anonymity, and you could even say in a large crowded room, and you get up with a microphone, there could be more anonymity in that environment than submitting electronically and putting your name on it. So there are different mechanisms around it. What I would love to hear from people is stuff like that from Meg. If you are a communicator, what is your expectation of feedback when you get it from your employees? Are you expecting it to be named? Does your company have a policy around that? Like, you do not accept anonymous feedback? Or what I'm curious, with things around the pandemic and Black Lives Matter and other social crises that are happening, I think about the Me Too movement that happened. Did your company shift on this topic of anonymity because people might not want to put their name on what they're sharing? So this one from Joanna: creating a culture of trust, respect is hard. It is hard, but I would say I think it's expected. Even new leaders or engaged leaders, if the culture has been embedded a long time, changing that is the big challenge. Any top tips? Rachel, how do you begin to open up a culture or change a culture on this topic?
So the definition of culture I use, I know many people use, is the way things are done around here. So when you join an organization, particularly if the way things are done around here is that we don't ask questions, then that's what lives. That's what's kind of seeded throughout the organization. The way to change a culture is to redefine the way things are done around here. And if your feedback and your, was it anonymous or not, is built into this is now the way we do things around here, you need to set it out. You need to communicate it, particularly if you are hiring new people or people are re-onboarding. I don't know if that's a word. Is that a word? Re-onboarding people? We'll go with it. Who have been furloughed. There's lots of opportunity right now to kind of reset the boundaries and go, this is now the way we do things around here, because we can't be together in person particularly. So why not? Why not try and nudge and shift your culture and do it incrementally? But you need to communicate the fact that I often think about culture through this lens in terms of this is what we expect from you and this is what you can expect from us. So there's a dual accountability there, not you can ask us loads of questions and then we'll do nothing with it. What we expect from you is that you have a voice and we'd like you to use it. And what you can expect from us is that we will take it seriously and we will do something about your feedback. So it doesn't need to be dressed up in all fancy words. It can literally be setting out your stall in terms of this is the way that we do things around here.
Yeah, I think.
What about you? What do you think?
I hear you on the way we do things around here. There's an element of the way things feel, because I see this in my role at Social Chorus, going in and working with a lot of different communicators and leaders in a lot of different environments. Sometimes that first time you walk through that door or that first meeting you sit in, even not working there, you get a feel for the culture. You get a feel for, even when it's not on site and you have a Zoom call, is everybody's cameras on? Is everybody's cameras off? Is everybody's mute on? Is everybody's mute off? Do people, when you ask a question, do people jump over themselves to answer it? Or do people sit back and wait for others to answer? So I see that culture is a big part of how it feels. And I think how that feels is also when people get that feeling of, do I give feedback? Are they going to care about this? Am I going to be criticized, ridiculed, have the spotlight put on me for it? Am I going to be celebrated for providing this feedback? I think sometimes there's difficult items, difficult conversations. People should be protected around it versus feeling like they're going to be outed around it. I think oftentimes that's where that trust comes into play. And I did have one slight bone to pick with some communicators out there, Rachel.
Oh, do it. What's it going to be?
And it's that I've heard stories, and I'm not going to name names or organizations. I've heard stories where they're telling employees your feedback is anonymous. but it's not.
Ooh.
And
Are
it's
they,
not.
are they looking
it's
in the
not,
back end?
They're going through the back end, whether it's
Mm.
looking at IP addresses or SSO logins or the data you entered in. I've even
But why?
seen feedback tools where it's not, let's say it's electronic. And I
Mhm.
think there's some value to this, but it's not just what you submit, but it's what you've typed. So if you type something out and then backspace and delete, you see what was typed out and then what was deleted and then
Oh, that's
retype.
the good stuff. But that's so naughty. That's not on. That's not okay.
That I think that makes me, that irks me, because I try to in every turn try to champion the employee and think about what their expectations are of communicators, of leaders, of that experience. And if you tell them it's anonymous and it's not, man,
Yeah, that's not okay.
shame.
That's not
I don't know
okay.
what the British verb of shame would be. Is it still in the UK, like shame
I
on
don't.
you kind of thing? I
I
expected a witty
can't see
one
your
on that one.
hands. I can't see what you're doing with your hands. I'm
Oh,
intrigued.
it's like a
But-
shame. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know that. I love our little differences in language. I love it. There's some great comments that are coming in here. I'm really appalled by that. I'm really appalled by that. I think if you're asking for feedback, you're saying it's anonymous. You better make sure it's anonymous. That's not okay.
So Peyton, this is a great example. I love seeing examples come in. Peyton is an amazing communicator at a hospital out of Houston. She was a keynote at Connect a few years ago. I think standing ovation around it. So
Great.
Peyton, hello, great to see you here. This You Asked, We Listened shares examples of employee feedback and how it changed business operations. Peyton, that is what it's all about. Like, get the feedback, let people know we got it. This is what you told us. Now this is what we did. Now give us more feedback. And on the topic of feedback, Rachel, one thing that you and I disagree on is the whole topic of survey fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a future topic or not. I don't know. But I think
we're going to come to blows, Chuck.
that's why I think I've got the reach on you. I can just kind of keep you at bay a little bit. Provide a stiff arm.
Such a pickle.
That's where now you got me off thought there. But anyway, when people give feedback and nothing happens, they're not going to give it again. I see that even from a consumer standpoint. When I get asked questions about, would you recommend this? They're not going to do anything with this feedback, so I don't take the time. But if you know that there's value to it and people are going to participate in it and then take it and improve things, absolutely. I want to see what this question is here. Are they still we're still looking where they're based? Are they still in that shame category? I think we might have outed somebody here maybe a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with knowing this population group feels this way over here, but another population group feels this way over here. I think that speaks to leadership, especially the larger the organization. You want to know if there's inconsistencies in that employee experience, what people experience as an employee across different parts of the business. Now, if there's one person in that department with that attribute, then that's not really anonymous, because then you know who that person is.
See, that's the key thing with employee surveys as well. So certainly when I was in-house, when you had teams that are too small, and if there were less than 10 people, they'd kind of get smushed together with another team, and then you'd get employee survey feedback, which isn't as valuable as it could be, because you can't really pinpoint in terms of feedback for leadership, particularly because it's kind of all mushed together. So, but it's important to protect the confidentiality of, it's important about what's being said rather than who said it. So sometimes we have some issues where, sorry, my Siri's just kicked in. Let's turn that off. So we'll kick it off. But sometimes actually, by trying to be really confidential and putting teams together, you end up with data that's not as useful as it could have been. So sometimes it's not an ideal scenario. I've got a lovely comment here from Natasha saying, the British version of your shame is to tut loudly and roll our eyes. Oh, yes, we're good at tutting. I agree with that, Natasha. That's a great comment. That's totally what we do. You're completely right. Love that. That's so
there we go. Now, I did want to showcase an example of, and this is where we're going to get a little fancy here for us on Spin the Wheel, Rachel. I want to share a Twitter feed that I saw come to light this week, that if you don't want to provide a channel for feedback for your employees named, you don't even want to do it anonymously, they might end up going to Twitter for this. So there is now a Twitter feed, and this is related to the Black Lives Matter movement, largely started in the US, but now is globally happening around. And this seems to be largely UK driven, that it is individual employees are DMing this Twitter account, sharing their experience of what it's like to be a Black employee. And this company is publishing this on Twitter. So if you're not providing an opportunity, so the account is at by 9 to 5, anybody can go check it out. This is where that feedback could go. Obviously, these employees did not feel heard. They did not feel listened. They felt shamed for who they are or what their experience was. So they went to Twitter with it. Maybe much like some of us do with our experience as a consumer. These are people anonymous going and sharing this. So I'm not sharing this with you out of fear of going and finding out what your company is and telling your leadership about it. But just know that there are opportunities, if you're not providing it, for employees to go and still share what their experience is like. This is related to Black Lives Matter, and the hashtag Black in the Office is what they've done here. It's
shocking.
An amazing resource. It's shocking. It's
Yeah.
disappointing. It's terrifying. It's sad to read some of these. As you see, I keep scrolling and it doesn't stop. So this isn't like 5 people. This is a lot. So certainly keep this in mind as your organization looks at feedback mechanisms, because if you don't have one, it could end up on Twitter.
I think part of that for me is around your employer brand, which is your reputation and promise as an employer. And it is back to culture and the way we do things around here, around the way we respect each other and the way we treat each other. And you're right, in terms of if there isn't a mechanism internally to really listen and take your employees' views seriously, then there is a risk. There always has been. It will be on Twitter, on Facebook, on Glassdoor. And I think the companies who respond to Glassdoor, that's the right thing to do, to be really mindful of your employer brand and make sure that you're not sanitizing the comments, but you're understanding what are the problems that are going on in our organization that got to the point where our people are going externally, and bring it internally and have those discussions, have those conversations. Really important.
Absolutely. Well, I think this has been a great discussion. I want everyone to keep reaching out to Rachel and I on this topic. We all clearly have so much to learn about feedback and anonymity. And I love the example from Peyton and so many of the others that were contributing around encouraging people to be a part of it. But now it's time to go to the wheel. Rachel, we missed that last week. Right thing to do with Katrina being on. But let's go to the wheel and make this all happen here. We're getting fancy again. These are the topics for Spin the Wheel this week. Either things that we saw happening this week in the world of internal comms, ideas submitted to us. One that I liked was this IOIC calls to action for IC professionals. So what are all those calls to actions that people have? There's a great topic on LinkedIn today around how do you turn a channel off? So you've built this channel and then now you're done with it. How do you turn that off for people that are still using it? Gian Hyde submitted or had a great write-up on LinkedIn around company culture post-COVID. So how can we talk about culture and brand in this post-COVID world, or whenever we get to post-COVID world, I guess. Building a business case for IC investment, finding a job, hopefully a fun job, during lockdown. I think that's a unique challenge for people that have been furloughed. How do you go find that next opportunity out there? One of my favorite topics, which I hope gets picked, is employee-generated content. I love employee-generated content. Again, voice of the employee. Number 7, how to launch a channel or campaign during lockdown. And number 8, how to onboard new hires or re-onboard furloughed employees. Before we spin the wheel, Rachel, any favorites of yours on here that you hope wins?
I'm with you on number 6. Love employee-generated content.
Oh, yes.
All
absolutely.
of them are cracking. There's some great topics in there.
Okay. All right. Let's spin the wheel. Let's see what we get. Oh, it's mesmerizing. Oh, is that number 6?
Yay!
Employee-generated content. All right.
Nice.
So next week, we will spend that time talking about, there's so many ways we could go with this, Rachel. What makes for good employee-generated content? How to source employee-generated content. My favorite tip around it is tell communicators, get the hell out of the way. Let people do what they do best and create what matters to them. So that is what we will talk about next week. And I did have quick personal news to share here, Rachel. I don't know if you've heard or not, but Spin the Wheel was a 3-person operation. So we had you and myself, and then my lovely wife Kristen as our executive producer off here to my side, making sure everything's going all right. And then this week we added B-Dog down here below. So B-Dog is now a member of the Spin the Wheel family. He's a 12-year-old rescue who we've been chasing during the pandemic, trying to adopt him. Absolutely amazing dog. You might have heard him clip-clopping around during the broadcast, but we're so happy to have him. Even Rachel, when you and I were talking yesterday, you're like, you have a new glow about you. And I was like, yes, it's because of this space. It's this space right here. So yeah, B-Dog is now a proud part of the Spin the Wheel family. So one other quick note reminder for everyone. This is very important. This, unfortunately, Rachel, this is only for American viewers. I can share this news with everyone. Tomorrow is National German Chocolate Cake Day.
We can join you in that.
German chocolate cake is my favorite cake of all time. We may or may not already have one made, ready to celebrate. We might start celebrating early. But tomorrow is National German Chocolate Cake Day, so everybody make sure you celebrate accordingly and responsibly. Rachel, any final parting thoughts before we go?
Keep going, everyone. You're doing a good job. Keep grafting and keep asking for help. Everyone's here to help each other.
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks for the conversation. We'll see you all next week, and check your marshmallows. Bye, everybody.
Bye.